Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's health, nutrition, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and menopause. We know that during this time in their life, so many things changes, and we have so many struggles like brain fog, we have night sweats, hot flashes, irritability, but also we start experiencing this belly fat that seems to accumulate out of absolutely nowhere, despite not changing anything. So we go back to our regular ways of dieting, whether that's cutting out calories, cutting out carbs, doing a ton of exercise, yet nothing seems to work, or you're putting in a ton of effort and really not seeing the results that you used to. We know that now inherently your body is completely different due to the changes in your hormones. So our mission here is to teach women about how their body changes during perimenopause and menopause so that you can finally live a life full of vitality, reach those health and fitness goals, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today I have Coach Emma on the podcast with me today. She's been with the company for over a year now. She's a phenomenal coach. And what we wanted to talk to you about was actually ulcerative colitis, because this is something that she experienced and deals with as well. And just talking about gut health in general, how that's going to influence your ability to lose weight, different things that you can do to make sure that you're improving that, to do the best that you can to get healthy so you can lose weight. Because if we're in a constant state of like sickness or inflammation, it makes it really, really hard to lose weight. We're going to talk all about gut health, talking about Coach Emma about her experience with ulcerative colitis, how she manages her symptoms, and then again, gut health in general, why it's really important to have a happy gut if you want to lose weight, and also build muscle, because a lot of people with ulcerative colitis have a really hard time with this. So, Coach Emma, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you start by telling everyone what ulcerative colitis is?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Ulcerative colitis, or UC, is a chronic inflammatory bowel disease in which abnormal immune system function leads to inflammation and ulcers in the inner lining of the large intestine. So UC tends to have two different phases and can be characterized by periods of flare-ups where new damage appears, and remission, where the intestinal membrane kind of undergoes a period of healing. Typically, UC is most likely to develop between the ages of 15 and 30. Personally, I was diagnosed when I was 22, I think. However, it can happen at any age across the lifespan.
Yeah, so let's talk about the symptoms a little bit here. So the symptoms of UC are first and foremost typically pain, especially in the lower left part of your abdomen, almost similar to gas pain, but it tends to be so much more persistent. You can also have like blood or mucus in your stool. You can have like diarrhea, constipation, which again is common with most gut health issues. You can have frequent trips to the restroom, so going like 10 times plus per day. And then like extreme fatigue, so you're tired all of the time. So Emma, is there like a cure for ulcerative colitis?
Unfortunately, there's not a cure right now. However, there are several treatment options that can be implemented to reduce the symptoms. So mainly it's like symptom management. There's medication or corticosteroids. There are immune system suppressors, which tend to reduce inflammation by suppressing the immune system, because UC is generally like characterized by the immune system attacking the body. And there is also biologics, which is a treatment that targets proteins made by the immune system, which leads to less overall inflammation in the body. And then finally, in severe cases, there's surgery, which will actually remove part or full colon and rectum.
Yeah, like I actually have a few friends that struggle with this. And like most people that I talk to have had multiple surgeries because of UC, like super common, unfortunately. So when we talk about like risk factors for UC, it's super unclear. Like the leading theory is that the disease is most likely caused by an autoimmune response that is like triggered by environmental factors, whether that be like diet, stress, exposure to toxins in the environment, things like that. So typically there's something that like sets it off. Genetic factors can obviously also play a role. So like it tends to run in families. However, that's not always the case. Like for Emma, she doesn't have anyone in her family that has it. But certain autoimmune conditions or allergies can also lead to the development of the disease, and typically like with inflammation. So Emma, tell me about your background with UC. Like tell me all about that.
Yeah. So I truly think that my kind of onset of UC was due to like the perfect storm of lifestyle factors, along with like a kind of genetic predisposition. Although no one in my family has it, I think I did probably have some kind of autoimmune issue that kind of was like the trigger. So for a period of time, like I think this was like the final year of I was in college. I was doing intermittent fasting. I was vegan, and was just really stressing myself out. I believed that I was eating extremely healthily. I had a college professor who was a huge proponent of the vegan diet and of intermittent fasting. So I thought I was doing everything right. On top of that, I was working out in a fasted state about 5 to 6 days per week with mostly high intensity exercise. So my body really never had a chance to recover. I was in a like chronic state of stress and inflammation. And on top of that, I really wasn't fueling properly. I was extremely restrictive with my food choices. I would almost say I had like orthorexia. I was like obsessed with being healthy and making sure that I was putting the best quality food into my body, or so I thought. So I would always opt for what I thought were the healthy choices, like legumes, lentils, tofu, tempeh, raw veggies, which were all extremely hard on my digestive system. I was also working a really, really stressful job, with kind of a micromanager boss. So I was in a flight or fight state, like basically from the time I woke up. I would like wake up super early, go to the gym in the morning, fasted, I'd only have coffee. Then I'd get to work, maybe eat something, maybe not. I'd be stressed out for those 8 hours and then wouldn't get to relax until I got home from work. So looking back, it kind of really was like the perfect cocktail of events. My body was in a chronic state of inflammation. I was putting excess stress on my gut by eating foods that were extremely difficult for my body to digest and by not giving myself time to recover between workout sessions. So at first I was like a little naive or in denial. I kind of ignored the signs. I was convinced my body would eventually adjust and that this was just kind of like an adjustment period and it would just take time and eventually things would kind of level out.
And I think a lot of people are like listening to this and being like, oh crap, like I'm doing all those things. And it's a lot like we all think that we're doing all the right things, right? It's like we're moving more, we're eating more healthily, we're removing all the things from our diet, we're fasting, like we're doing all these things and then also like being super motivated at work and go, go, go. And like we're doing all the things right to like crush it. But then it's like when you take a step back, it's like, that's so stressful on your body. And like everyone's like, more is better, more is better. Like some must be good, more is better. And it's like, no, more of the right stuff is good. But like sometimes doing more of the right stuff is more recovery, more rest, less exercise. And like people don't typically think that way. I think it's getting better. There's more education on it now, which is great. But like, again, such a struggle to like break that mindset.
Definitely. Yes.
So tell me, what were like the first symptoms that you started experiencing that kind of like led you down this journey?
Yeah. So the first sign I would say was like really persistent, like pain in my lower abdomen, like the left-hand side. I like initially thought that this was just kind of indigestion. I was going through periods where I'd have like diarrhea and other periods where I'd have constipation. So I was like, okay, it's probably just, something I ate. It'll go away. It didn't go away. The other thing that really stood out to me was extreme fatigue. So there would be days at a time where I was like confined to the couch. I just couldn't get up. And this was like super unlike me. I was always the person who's like up and ready to go and just, it was really uncharacteristic. I then started having like excessive like bathroom trips, I guess I would say. So I was going like 5 or 6 times per day. And then the final kind of sign that really got me to like want to get this looked at was I had blood in my stool, which was like extremely scary because I had no idea what was going on. But that was kind of the final thing that convinced me to get treatment.
Yeah. So like my mom, she actually had like, she had always struggled with like gut health stuff. And, I'll never forget. She was like, oh, like my stomach hurts and blah, blah, like doubled over in bed. And I was like, okay, we need to get this checked out. And then she's like, oh, like, I think there's like blood in my stool. I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, we're going to the doctor. And she's like, oh, is it really that big of a deal? Because she hated doctors. And I was like, woman, get in my car. Like, we're not doing this game.
Yeah.
So if anyone has blood in their stool, please go to a doctor. Please get it checked out because that is absolutely positively not a good sign and not supposed to happen. And this isn't meant to scare you. This is like, let's be proactive. Let's talk about poop and fix your health. Okay, so you had all these symptoms. How was your experience like getting this like diagnosed, going through healthcare? What were the steps with that?
Yeah. So being a young adult, it was generally expected that I was healthy, you know? I was really kind of dismissed by several doctors due to my age and my health being otherwise like good. I'd never had a history of any type of issue. So this was really kind of uncharacteristic, just looking at my medical chart. I was told by different doctors that I had indigestion, so like a sensitive gut, or constipation. One doctor even told me that my symptoms were due to food poisoning, which
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't know how they decided on that, but there were like periods of time where I would call off of work because the pain was so bad and I had to take so many trips to the bathroom. And I would be like I said, confined to my bed or the couch for up to like 3 days because I was so fatigued. So this is how I knew something was really wrong. And I knew there was something going on in my body. I really wanted to get an answer.
That's like so brutal that they would like just, okay, you're healthy, then it's not a big deal. It's like, because I'm healthy, you should almost care more because there's like, this is not good. Like, something is
Right.
wrong. And like, I feel like lots of people don't go to the doctor a ton. Like you have people who go to the doctor often, but then you have people who like don't go often because like, you're good, you're fine, things are great. So when you actually go and ask for help and you don't get it, that is one of the most frustrating things ever. I am the worst patient because like I don't go to the doctor often. So if I'm going to the doctor, I have a reason, I have a list of things, I have my requests, the tests that I want. Like I remember with like an old partner that I had, he was having a bunch of issues and like they couldn't figure out what it was and they kept just like chalking it up to anxiety. And he's like not an anxious person. And I was like, I'm not leaving till we get a requisition for an MRI, like, or a CT is what I wanted. And I was like, we're not leaving until like we get one. And they're like, well, I just don't think it's really necessary. I'm like, he's not getting better. You're pushing medications that aren't making a difference. They're actually making him feel worse. So like, let's actually figure out what the problem is because this is ridiculous. And it's so frustrating how much you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, you got like sloughed off by a bunch of doctors. That wasn't super great. Like, didn't really get anywhere with it. So how did you actually end up getting diagnosed?
So at first, like I kept trying to make appointments with specialists. But if you don't have a referral, it's extremely hard to get in. So the wait times I think were like up to 8 months. And at that point I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it for 8 more months, honestly. Like I was in really rough shape. My symptoms had gotten to a point where I was like, it was really bad. Like I was literally just pooping blood and ended up going to the emergency room. They ran all these tests, did like blood tests, gave me fluids, and couldn't really do anything to treat me there. But they did connect me to a gastro doctor who finally listened to me and ran the appropriate tests. So we did stool tests, blood tests, and ultimately a colonoscopy. And that's where I was finally diagnosed with UC and put on an immediate treatment plan.
That's insane that it like took you like having to go to the hospital because you were literally
Yes.
only expelling blood for them to take you seriously. Like that's insane to me. Like that's why people are so sick in our countries because it's taking so long to get help. That's insane.
I know. Yeah. It was a wild roller coaster.
I can't even imagine how like frustrating and like emotional that would have been.
It really was because I was, like I said, like I was in rough shape, which wasn't like me. I was really unable to do a lot of things that I wanted to do in my life. I remember the morning where I experienced that like blood situation. I was supposed to go to a friend's birthday party. It was like a pool party and I couldn't go because of it. And this wasn't the first time that I was kept from being able to do something like that, but this disease, if it goes unmanaged, really can rule your life. Thankfully, my symptoms are really well managed with medication. So what I take is an anti-inflammatory medication that targets specifically the intestines. So think of like Tylenol or aspirin, but specifically for the gut. I'm also really kind of able to manage the symptoms by being strategic about my food choices. So personally, I do best on like a low fiber, low fat, no legume, no raw veggie, limited alcohol diet. And then the third thing that really has helped is just lifestyle. So making sure I'm taking those rest days, doing my stress management, removing as many environmental toxins as possible.
Which is like wild because people are going to hear this and be like, you got healthier by taking out legumes, by not having too much fat, which means you're probably eating higher carb, having lower fiber carb options, not eating any raw veggies. People are probably like, what? Like, how does that actually help you be healthier, right? Like, that's so backwards from like the messaging that we get all the time. But this is why it's important to like get assessed. Everything has to be individualized. This is why like cookie cutter things don't work.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes against everything we're told, right? It seems like what I'm doing now is less healthy, but really it's the only thing that keeps me healthy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the good stuff. Like you went through a lot of crazy things. Like it took you a long time to get like your diagnosis and stuff. But like, where are you now?
Yeah. So I'm technically in what would be called remission right now, which means I rarely experience flare-ups. So maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I'll experience short-lived flare-ups that last for like 2 or 3 days. Certain foods are still triggers for me, so I do have to be mindful of my diet. I can't just like go out and, have a burger if I want a burger. I have to really pay attention to my biofeedback. So I monitor my digestion, I monitor my stress, even my mood. Like I'll notice if I have like a week where I'm like not feeling myself, if I'm feeling down or more anxious, I can kind of make note like, hey, there's probably a flare coming. So I'm able to do as much as I can to prepare for that. I'm extremely, extremely fortunate to be able to live life without fear that I will experience an unannounced flare. So there's usually kind of some kind of sign or symptom before it actually hits. But I know a lot of people with UC are restricted in what they can do in life just due to the unpredictable nature of the disease. Thankfully, I have a fantastic treatment team who is able to find a solution for my case. I used to actually be really ashamed of my UC, but I've experienced nothing but immense support from friends and family, and it makes it so much easier to manage too. So really leaning into my support system has been a tremendous help as well.
And like you just competed in October, right? In like a bodybuilding competition, which is competition, which is amazing. And that's like pretty unheard of for people with like ulcerative colitis.
Yeah. To me, that experience wasn't really about stepping on stage. It was more about saying like, F you to my UC, like this is not going to hold me back. And just proving to myself that I can do this. I don't have to be defined by this disease.
Yeah, like not let it be like a part of your like your identity or what you can and can't do, right? Like that must have been so empowering.
It really was. It really was. I'm really lucky to have been able to have that experience.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
I know you wanted to talk a little bit about gut health in general. So did you kind of want to talk about like the gut microbiome a little bit?
Yeah. So let's like talk about that a little bit. Like the gut, like there's so much we're still learning about the gut. There's so many things, like we just realized what a huge connection it has with literally everything in our body. But your microbiome consists of trillions of microbes that live in your intestine and actually on your skin. There are actually more bacterial cells in your body than human cells, which is like insane to think of. So obviously they play a very crucial role. There are around 1,000 different types of bacteria in the human gut microbiome, and each of these play a critical role in our body's functioning. So the gut microbiome will literally affect your body in all the ways. So including digestion, obviously, but like immune function and even your cognition and your mood. Like there's lots of studies that show like there's a huge like link between like brain function, cognition, mood, and your gut health, which is like so wild. And there's so much more research that has to be done, but like, it's incredible to think of like everything that it affects. And it's important to note that like everyone is different. What works for one person might not work for the next. Like eating as low fiber as Emma does probably won't work well for me because if I eat low fiber, I literally don't poop for 3 days. Like it's absolutely horrific. I need a ton of fiber. And there's no one size fits all approach whatsoever to ensure you have a healthy gut microbiome. So some individuals, again, are going to do better with some foods. And it's important to like figure out what actually works best for you. So like Emma said, she eats a lower fiber diet, which means, and a lower fat diet. So she has a higher carb diet. That doesn't necessarily work for everyone. So it's really important to like take inventory of your life. It's great to have someone be able to assess you because like the more stressed out you are, the more active you are, the more carbs you're going to need. But with carbs typically comes fiber. So you have to play around and see what that fiber number has to be like for you. And huge fluctuations in fiber can typically lead to digestion issues as well. I always love to tell the story where I actually made Emma's white chicken chili, which has a ton of fiber in it. And it was so good, I decided to have 2 bowls for supper and 1 for lunch, which left me like, usually I eat like 19 to 25 grams of fiber in a day. That pumped me up to like 40 something. I didn't poop for like 3 days, maybe 4. My weight went up by like 5 pounds. My body was like holding on to water because all that fiber just like sucks water into your gut. So like when you're inconsistent with your fiber intake, you can get tons of fluctuation in your digestive system and your symptoms. So making sure that you are like actually tracking food, and people like, you don't have to track all the time, but it is helpful, especially if you're someone who struggles with digestion, like being able to see how much your fiber fluctuates can help you so much in figuring out where that fiber comes from. So it's like, oh, if I have this really high fiber bread, I probably shouldn't have like a ton of raspberries too, because that's going to add up super quick. So trying to take note of the foods that also like sit well with you or don't sit well with you, and just really learning about your body. So again, tracking can be super helpful. People think it's like a way to like, it like controls your life or things like that. But if you use it as a tool to help you understand your body, what your body responds to best, how you feel when you're eating certain foods, pairings of foods, how it affects your digestion, bloating, all that kind of stuff, your energy. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It can actually be like tracking can end up being one of the most freeing things, which we typically see with a lot of our clients. So if someone is struggling or thinks there might be something going on with their gut, or they're just not really happy with like bloating, they're not having daily bowel movements, all that kind of stuff. Emma, what are some things that they can do to start like assessing things?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a couple questions you can actually ask yourself to assess your gut health at home. So the first one is, how often do you poop? Anywhere between like 1 time a day to 2 times a day, or maybe every other day can be normal. So try to take a look at like what's your normal. If you notice any like fluctuations, that might be a sign that you might need to take a look at your diet or lifestyle factors. Another thing you can do is take a look at what your poop actually looks like. So there's a chart called the Bristol stool chart, and I think there are like 5 or 6 different like poop consistencies that you can compare to, and those will kind of like let you know if your gut is healthy or not. And then the final thing is, how often do you bloat or experience gas? So a little bit of bloat or gas is typically normal, but if you're getting bloated after like every meal or experiencing a lot of gas, this might indicate that you have food sensitivities or something else going on. Some of the most common symptoms of gut trouble can be things like excessive bloating, constipation or diarrhea, fatigue, brain fog, heartburn, headaches or migraines, sinus congestion, and even getting sick often. So I know we've kind of just gone over the symptoms, but Steph, what actually causes these symptoms?
So many things. But first I want to say like the Bristol stool chart. It's so funny. So like Taylor and I, we talk about poop all the time. Like it's so just normal for us. People are like, you guys are weird. And it's like, no, like we talk about health. We talk about digestion. Like he's very curious about like learning more because he never really like took health and like nutrition and stuff seriously until we got together. And it's so funny. He'll be like, oh, that's like a 4 today. I'm like, oh, good. That's great. Like, like that's how we talk. And also it's like, people don't like talking about like bowel movements and stuff, but like my mom, when she got diagnosed with cancer the first time, it was like talking about poop is literally what like saved her life, got her in for surgery. We found out that she had a tumor, got that removed. Like, so talking about poop is actually super important, and like it needs to be done more often, to be honest.
I totally agree. Yeah, I used to be like really shy about it, but you just kind of get over it.
Yeah, like even when I travel with friends and stuff, it's like, because like typically when you travel, digestion's not the best, right? Because you're like, your routine's off, you're not drinking as much water, the food choices you're making are different, all that kind of stuff. And it's funny. So like, did you poop yet? And we're like, oh, no. Or it's like, oh, I'm going to try and poop. And then we come out of the bathroom. It's like, did you do it? And it's like, no. And it's like, oh. And then you finally go to the bathroom and you come out and they're like, did you poop? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, yay. And we're like all excited. So it's like, it's a regular part of life and it does tell you a lot about your health. So it's important to discuss. So in terms of what actually causes digestive issues, there are so many things. It can be stress. It can be exposure to environmental chemicals, infections, allergies. And the thing that's important to know about that is that they all cause inflammation. So I know we talk a lot in perimenopause and menopause, like cortisol is going to be really high. And that's because our stress tolerance decreases because estrogen goes down. So typically as people start going through perimenopause and menopause, we start to see a lot more of the bloating, the fluid retention, we might feel like our fingers are more puffy, and just we just feel kind of larger, bloated, fluffier, that kind of feeling. And it's because inflammation also goes up, because when cortisol is up, it does cause inflammation to increase in our body. But also when estrogen goes down, estrogen really helps manage inflammation in our body. So as estrogen decreases, now we don't have that little extra thing to help us bring that inflammation down and really regulate it. So if we're always stressed on the go all of the time, inflammation stays elevated, we run into the risk of leaky gut syndrome. I know that's something that's tossed around a lot, but we like to think of your gut lining as a patio screen. Air can come through, but larger things like the insects and leaves cannot penetrate the barrier. But when our gut becomes inflamed, the small holes will start to develop in the barrier, just like if there's a tear in your screen. So I almost like to think of it too as for those of you on YouTube, think of your gut as your fingers interlaced. And as inflammation goes up, the area, your fingers get bigger and bigger. And now you have this room for holes, for particles to go through that aren't supposed to be there. And again, that leads to leakages. And those particles that go through are not supposed to be in your bloodstream. And they escape through those holes in the screen in your gut. So if inflammation stays chronic, those holes also never have the opportunity to repair. And basically your body just starts attacking itself. Because of the escaped food particles, they're going to be flagged as intruders. They're going somewhere where they're not supposed to be. And then if these issues continue over and over and over for a period of time, your immune system will get weaker because it's in overdrive, constantly trying to fight these particles that are going into your blood. And you're never allowing time for that to actually get better, because it's just a continuous stream of things getting in where it's not supposed to. And then again, you're going to end up with those symptoms like the bloating, you're going to get the headaches, the fatigue, the brain fog, heartburn, headaches, migraines, sinus congestion, constipation, diarrhea, all those things. And then it can also lead to new issues like potentially food allergies. We become very sensitive to those things, the inability to actually digest certain foods, and even intestinal bleeding. So that is worst case scenario. We want to prevent that as best as we can. And that's really, really important. So Emma, how important is it to actually address gut health when it comes to weight loss?
Super important. So we know some inflammation is good. So for example, we can expect to see healthy levels of inflammation after a workout. And this would be an example of appropriate inflammation. However, if there's too much inflammation, it will lead to weight loss resistance because your body will be stuck in a perpetual state of stress. And we know that high cortisol prevents fat burning. So when the body is chronically stressed, its one main priority is to bring down that stress. Everything else, including weight loss, is put on hold. It doesn't matter how hard you push, how much you do, how many hours of cardio you're doing. If your body is chronically inflamed and stressed, you won't be able to lose that fat. If the gut is inflamed for extended periods of time, your body won't be able to properly absorb nutrients from the foods you eat. So this could lead to nutritional deficiencies, which will just have a cascading effect on your overall health, well-being, and weight loss progress. To make matters worse, prolonged gut inflammation will also make it extremely difficult for you to build muscle. So if your body can't properly access the nutrients from your foods, it can't be expected to assimilate those nutrients into muscle.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, the other thing to think about too, when cortisol is really high and we're in this constant state of fight or flight, and people are like, I'm not stressed, I handle it well. It's no, you don't. I promise you don't. You're just used to it. You're like the frog or the lobster or whatever it is that's boiling in water. It's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, but you don't realize you're literally boiling yourself to death. You're just used to it. That doesn't mean your body isn't stressed out, that things are still happening. So if you toss in you're not eating enough, stressful on the body. Not eating enough carbs, stressful on the body. Doing a ton of cardio and high intensity exercise, stress on the body. Then you add in not sleeping, stress on the body. You're having like go, go, go. You're not sleeping well. You're waking up. You're fasting, stress on the body. Having caffeine on an empty stomach and then not eating till later, stress on the body. Adding in inflammatory foods because now you're exhausted because you're just like go, go, go all the time and depleted. You're naturally going to reach for like processed sugary foods. Also adds inflammation to the body, also increases stress in the body, also increases your cortisol levels. So like, it's just this like constant thing that's going. And if we never take the time to slow down and actually like relax, it's really hard. And people are like, I can't remove stress from my life. And it's like, that's okay. You have to adjust your lifestyle factors appropriately so that you can like mitigate those stress responses, because it's true, we can't always get stress out of our life. So during times of higher stress, we need to up our calories. We need to work out a little bit less. We need to make sure we're having carbohydrates. Like these are ways to help bring that stress response down without actually physically removing the stress, because sometimes that's not possible. And then toss in like during fight or flight, this high stress response, our blood is going away from our tummy to our limbs to either help us, what I like to say, fight the bear, run away from the bear, fight or flight. So our body slows down digestion even more. And if more and more food, like that's going to slow down digestion. So food kind of accumulates in the gut. There's less motility. So like your intestines need to contract to like help move food around and break it down. So if that's slowed down, then you have more food in there, which is again going to expand the intestinal lining even more, leading to more inflammation, stretching out, more holes for that to go through. So you're just making it worse constantly. And I know it can sound so backwards and so scary to start eating more foods, eating more carbs. Like, did you find it terrifying to start like having to eat more carbs, having to eat more food to help with this?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really went against everything that I was taught. You know, I was doing intermittent fasting. I was extremely like rigid with my diet, and being told like, hey, that's not working. It was huge for me. I didn't believe it at first. I was like, well, how am I going to be expected to get healthier if what I'm doing right now is the healthiest thing that I can be doing? So the mindset change was huge for me. Huge. It took time too. It didn't just happen overnight. To this day, like sometimes I'll be like, wow, like, am I really doing what's right for me? But honestly, it comes back to that biofeedback. Like I feel better now. I'm putting on muscle in the gym, which was a huge struggle for me when I was dealing with UC. Like I wasn't making progress. I wasn't putting on muscle, and I was like constantly wondering why. Now I know why. It just wasn't working for my body. So we can't be expected to change our mindset overnight. It really is a process, but just kind of trusting that you will come out better on the other end, I think is what got me through really.
Well, and like we all get so worried about like gaining weight if we're going to eat more carbs or whatever. But it's like, if you're doing something that's actually improving your health, your energy, your hormone balance, that inherently is going to help you with weight loss, because a healthy body is one that is going to adapt and change to the stimulus that we're sending it, which like, unfortunately, it's so hard to like believe that. So if you focus on like health first, like physique will come afterwards, but it's just, it's so hard to deal with that. Right. And like, if we're gaining weight or like losing weight really rapidly or feeling really poorly, we're all like, oh, I need to improve my energy. Oh, I need to lose fat. And it's like, okay, but those are symptoms of something else going on in your body. So we need to figure out what's actually going on first to fix that, because like, otherwise it's just Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid. And that's not really doing anything because the issue is still persisting and we're not addressing it. The other thing I wanted to mention about stress quickly was like, we know that during perimenopause and menopause, when estrogen goes down, now our stress tolerance decreases a lot more. So maybe before you could handle all the high intensity cardio and the low carb and the low calorie and all that kind of stuff, before we could handle it, because before estrogen would help buffer that stress and keep cortisol in check. So like we could handle like a 9 out of 10 on the stress scale. Now we're going to see an increase in cortisol and all these negative side effects that come with it at like a 5 out of 10, because now our body just doesn't have that buffer to help. So our threshold decreases, which is like super frustrating. But this is where like doing more of the right stuff is helpful instead of just doing more of everything. And a lot of that time, that's more carbs, more calories, more rest, which is crazy. So what are some tips, Emma, to like, if someone wants to improve their gut health today, what are like some simple things that they can start implementing to really like get the ball moving, help with that bloating and inflammation and like really start healing their gut?
The first thing I would say is really try to identify the foods that sit well with your gut, and those that cause issues. So in my case, like I literally had to write down what I was eating and keep track of how I felt 20 minutes after I ate, to an hour after I ate, to an hour and a half after I ate, just to see how my body responded. You don't have to be that strict with it. But if there are any types of foods that you eat and notice immediately after you're getting bloated or feeling really low energy or just having indigestion, that might be a good sign to investigate a little further, because that might be kind of one of your trigger foods. You can also try incorporating a diverse array of foods, so assuming they sit well with you, to help encourage a healthy gut microbiome. We know that healthy gut microbiomes tend to be diverse, so eating the rainbow, as cliche as it sounds, will help you ensure that you're getting enough nutrients and really kind of like fertilizing your gut microbiome. Steph, I know you are a huge proponent of stress reduction, so reducing stress as much as possible is really going to help with digestion. Honestly, like for all the listeners out there, Feet Up changed my life. So thank you, Steph, so much for making me aware of that. I do it every night. I've noticed huge improvements, just obviously to stress reduction, but also to my digestion as well.
Yeah. So for those of people who don't know, Feet Up is like something we almost do mandatory with like every client in our program now. And what it entails is you either lay on the floor or a bed if you like don't want to lay on the floor, and you put your bum as close to the wall as possible, and you sit sideways, and then you lay down, and then you put your feet up on the wall and kind of twist yourself. It's so much easier than like trying to put your feet up on the wall and like scoot your bum towards the wall, because that's just kind of awkward. But then what you're doing is basically making an L shape. So you want to have your bum as close to the wall as you can. If you find that it's hurting your lower back or bothering you that way, you can put a little pillow or bend your knees a little bit or have your bum a little bit further away from the wall. But then basically what that does is, one, it brings blood flow from your legs back into your gut. So we talked about how with fight or flight, blood flow goes away from your gut into your limbs to help you fight the bear, run away from a bear, which slows down your digestion. There's less like movement and like of your intestines to break things down, move it along, all that kind of stuff. So what this does is bring blood flow back to the gut so it gets the blood so that it can help with digestion and break things down. Also, it forces your body to go into the rest and digest portion of your nervous system, so the opposite of fight or flight. So it brings your heart rate down, it brings your breathing down, it helps bring cortisol down, and it is a huge lifesaver. So for people who find that their bloating gets progressively worse during the day, especially like lower abdomen bloating, typically this is what we like to call stress bloat. And it's because like you're constantly in fight or flight, go, 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 go all the time. Stuff just sits in your stomach and doesn't go anywhere. And you just progressively get more bloated and bloated and bloated as the day goes on. So if you can implement this like midday for like 5 to 10 minutes, focus on just like slowly deep breathing, bringing that heart rate down, it helps a ton. But then also at nighttime, it's a great way to force your body into rest and digest to help you go to bed and also improve your digestion too. It's something that like, I love it. People send us photos of like them doing it with their kids, or now their kids do it after like a track meet. Like I get tons of those too, of them all doing it in the hotel room together. People at the office doing it together on their lunch break. Like I do it in meetings sometimes. Like people always laugh at me and post photos of me at conferences, like on my phone, like answering messages while my feet are up or like just relaxing there. And it honestly, it's made such a huge difference for my digestion as well. It helps with my bloating so much. In the evening, I'll typically do it like after supper as well, like after we've like tidied up and things like that. And now Taylor does it sometimes too. Or like we'll be laying in bed before bed, both of us in bed with our feet up on the wall. Like just make it a part of your routine. And it's like super great. And honestly, it feels so good. And we did this after hiking on like a little team trip we did in Whistler once. And like you, like, especially if you've been on your feet all day, like you can feel like the rush of the blood coming out of your legs. And it feels really weird at first. Some people are like, oh, my legs kind of went numb. And it's like, oh, okay. So like literally all the blood came out of your legs. That's what that is. So you don't need to do it for as long, but like, yeah, like game changer, like highly, highly recommend. Like we love it here at Vitality so much.
Yeah. Feet Up revolution. I'm here for it.
And then what other things can people do to improve gut health?
So just a couple more suggestions. Chewing your food. Like, I know it sounds so simple, but I am guilty of this. I know a lot of people who are guilty of this. I don't chew my food enough. Chewing your food enough, like really making sure that the food is broken down will help your body more easily access those nutrients, and will make digestion so much easier on your system.
Yeah, far less bloating.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Like tons less bloating.
And then the final recommendation I have is walking after meals to help with digestion. I honestly do this after every single meal, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is. Like I will take a walk, even if it's like 5 minutes, or sometimes I'll just walk down the street. It's like 100 paces. But what this does is just really helps with blood circulation, which will help get that digestion system started. And it'll also help with nutrient partitioning. So it'll make sure that those nutrients are getting where they need to go.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like to add too is like water around meal times. Like this is something we just started talking a little bit more about in like our reels and stuff like that. But like you have like a specific pH in your stomach acid that needs to be there in order for this thing called pepsin to be released in order for it to help break down food. So if you're drinking a ton of water at your meal times or right before or right after, it actually dilutes your stomach acid. And then it actually doesn't release enough pepsin for your body to break things down. So then things are leaving the gut not broken down enough, which again can lead to like bloating and tons of issues like that, which we do not want whatsoever. But then also there's like the blood sugar effect too. If you're drinking a bunch of water around meals, it's going to actually cause the food to empty out sooner and also not be broken down as well. So you're going to have bloating. You're going to have like the digestion system's just not happy, but also you're going to get a spike and a drop in your blood sugars, which leads to crashes and cravings later, which is going to make you eat more later. And can influence like insulin resistance, which is already a risk factor when estrogen decreases during perimenopause and menopause. So I know there's like that common conception of like, oh, drink a bunch of water before your meals. It'll fill you up. Yeah, it will, but it'll ruin your digestion. And it's also going to make you hungry sooner and potentially like influence your blood sugars, which we do not want. And again, with like walking after meals, such a good idea, even if it's just like 2 to 5 minutes walking around your kitchen for a bit or whatever it is, can help a ton. That being said, you shouldn't be going for like a run immediately after. Like you want to do like some light activity, nothing like insane, because again, people will be like, oh, great, I'm going to have my supper and go for a run. And it's like, nah, that's not going to feel good, because then again, blood's going to go away from your digestive system too extremely and then really slow things down. So there's always like a happy medium of stuff, because sometimes I feel you give advice and then people like take it too far.
Yeah, definitely been there before. Would not recommend exercising directly after eating.
With ulcerative colitis, I just have a few more questions for you. How is protein for you? Like, do you struggle with protein breakdown, or how has that been for you?
I really don't, actually. I'm pretty lucky in that respect. Right now, my calories are quite high, so I am eating a lot more protein than I was when I was, dieting for my competition. I typically hit between like 140 to 170 grams of protein per day, which
nice.
Does sound really high. But yeah, I don't have any issues with that. It's actually, if anything, I think my body really does well on protein, like a higher protein diet.
That's awesome. And then like with ulcerative colitis, since people have like a ton of like digestion issues, like going to the bathroom all the time and things like that, I'm sure it can be scary to eat more, because I've talked to people before who have gut health issues. We have people that we've worked with in the past, and like fear of eating more because they're scared they have to be by the bathroom all the time can be like a huge thing. Like I know I've talked to people who are like, oh, I don't eat until like lunchtime because otherwise I'm scared I'm going to be in the bathroom at work all day. So like, how do you kind of navigate that in terms of like eating more is actually going to be beneficial for you, as opposed to like the fasting and like eating really low calorie? Like I know there's definitely a fear of food when there's like a ton of gut health issues. So how do you navigate that conversation with like clientele, or how did you navigate that yourself? Because that must have been like a tough thing to like change, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, because you would think, the more you put in, the more has to come out. But I would say what worked for me was really just establishing a routine, honestly, like making my body used to an eating schedule. So I do eat very regularly throughout the day. For me, 5 meals works best. But for some people, maybe 3 meals, 4 meals, whatever it is. I've just found that my body has gotten used to what I've like told it to do pretty much. So it expects food at different times. So that way, like digestion is pretty predictable for me. I will say at first it was extremely scary because it was so different from what I'd been doing. But my body did adapt very quickly. I was really surprised. I never had any issues. I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a shot. And it worked.
Oh, that's awesome. And then like, were you tracking calories and stuff prior to that? Like, were you eating pretty low calorie prior?
So I was loosely tracking. When I was doing intermittent fasting, vegan, all that, I wasn't like weighing my food at all, but I was pretty mindful. Looking back, I was really under eating. I don't want to say I like had an eating disorder, but it was disordered eating, like intermittent fasting, being extremely rigid with my food choices. It just kind of naturally led me to eat less. Some days I was probably only eating like 1,100 calories, which is crazy to think about now. It really is. But like, I wasn't getting hunger cues because my cortisol was high all the time. I was just, my metabolism was so downregulated that I just wasn't getting healthy hunger cues.
Crazy. And then, so you were eating like probably 1,100, 1,200 calories a day-ish. What is your calorie intake like now? Because I'm sure people are like curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will preface this by saying it didn't happen overnight. But right now I'm eating 2,700 to 2,800 calories a day. And
oh my goodness, that's amazing.
I know, right? It's wild to think about. It's like more than double. But really like what got me out of it is reverse dieting. Like, honestly, I know we talk about this a lot, like on Facebook with our clients. Reverse dieting really is the answer. Just kind of easing your body out of that deprived state. It did take a while. Like, I will say it took me probably 2 years to get my metabolism back on track and ready to even diet again. So the first time, it took like 2 years to do that. I dieted down for my show. Thankfully didn't crash my metabolism. My calories got low, but like my metabolism bounced back really quickly. And I was able to bring my calories back up pretty steadily. So now we're like technically in a bulking phase where I'm eating around 2,800 a day.
Where would your like maintenance be? Like if you weren't actively trying to like increase size?
Maintenance is probably 2,500 to 2,600. So we're in a slight surplus right now. But.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing like how tall and what your weight is? Just because people are going to be shocked.
So I'm 5'6". Right now I'm hovering between like 130 to 134 in the morning. The lowest weight I got down to for my show was 112. So, I mean, definitely a pretty big increase from there, but obviously that's not sustainable. I would never want to walk around that light. My body seems to be happiest at 130.
That's awesome. So like for me, like I'm 5'5", I'm floating around like anywhere from 140 to 145, depending on the day and how many carbs I've had, to be completely honest. I find like fluid retention is like super easy for me. And then also if I've pooped, that's like a huge thing. If my gut health is off, it's like, 3 pounds up, pretty standard.
Yeah.
But my maintenance is like 2,200 to 2,400. So, and then when I went into my fat loss phase, the lowest I got was 1,750. Like did not go lower than that. And honestly, when I tried to push lower, my weight actually went up. So it was like too much stress on my body. And then when I brought my calories back up to 1,800, I dropped another 1.5 pounds. So it's like, everyone thinks it's like, you got to push more. And it's like, no, like you really got to pay attention to like how your body reacts, what it needs. But like you, like I was in a reverse, not really reverse. Like I brought my calories up a little bit, but like I stayed in a surplus / maintenance for 1.5 years and like really focused on like, okay, let's get my protein up. Let's make sure I have like a regular exercise routine. And I'm only working out like 2 to 4 days a week. Typically it's 3. With travel, it'll be 2. I'm only in the gym for like 45 minutes. I try to get my steps in, but I mean, working at a desk now, I don't get as many as I would like. And, but I mean, yeah, like it's, people don't realize how much just like focusing on hydration, getting some veggies in, getting some protein in, that can like kickstart your weight loss so quickly. Like you don't have to like drastically decrease, but you do have to make sure your body's ready for a decrease. And like 90% of people are not. So like for me, I was again at that like maintenance surplus for 1.5 years before I cut down to my fat loss phase, which by the way was only 6 weeks. I lost like 5 pounds. I was happy, came out of it for like 2 weeks. I'm going to dip down again next week. But I mean, I went from 1750 to like now I'm at like 2200 right now. And my weight only went up 2 pounds. I'm sure that's just because I have more food in my stomach. Like that's literally what that is. So it's like people don't realize how much like the maintenance, the surplus, the reverse dieting is so important because like it's really the only thing that's going to help you put yourself in a position where your body will actually respond to a fat loss phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I like to say to my clients a lot is we need to earn the right to diet. So if you are expecting to go into a diet and you're only eating 1,400 calories, you're doing high intensity exercise several times a week, we're not going to see any success in that fat loss phase. So really we need to get to the root cause, establish the foundation, and then give ourselves some room to work with.
Exactly. Because like, where are you supposed to go from there? Honestly.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
And if you don't feel good, you can't.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like your body's just telling you no the entire time.
Yeah. Listen to your body. If there's one thing to take away from this, listen to your body.
Yeah. Because it's giving you clues as to what's going on literally all the time. And like yesterday, I was actually on a check-in call with one of the people in our program. And she was telling me that she had a really hard time letting go of running. She's like, it was just really high intensity and yada, yada, yada. And she's like, I'm in my fat loss phase. She's still eating like a ton, like she's still good. But she decreased her running from 4 days a week to just 1, maybe 2. And what the 2 weeks after like that first week and then the next one where she like decreased her running, her body lost 2 pounds each week immediately. And I'm like, for sure it's inflammation. You had too much stress going on. Like, it's not always like as beneficial as you think it is to like do all these things that are so extreme.
Yeah. And it's so rewarding to get those messages from clients like, Emma, what is going on? I'm doing less, eating more, and my weight's going down. Like that is the ideal situation. I live for those messages.
Yeah. And it's like, then you can still lose weight and still enjoy the foods that you love and like not have to worry. Like, you're genuinely enjoying the process. And like, honestly, if you have energy and you're sleeping well, like you're just in a better mood in general, toss in good digestion, and then you're losing weight on top of that. Like who's not happy? Honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Any last like closing thoughts that you want to mention about ulcerative colitis or anything like that at all?
I guess just in terms of gut health in general, the biggest takeaway I would say is like, listen to yourself. Like your body will always tell you when something is wrong. It'll always give you signs, like Steph said. I feel like there's so much like dogma out there in terms of nutrition. Like this is the exact right thing to do. And this is the exact wrong thing to do. That is so not true, right? Like what works for me won't work for Steph, won't work for you. So really just take some time to get to know yourself and how your body works. And then, go from there.
Exactly. Honestly, like just getting an assessment done by someone. And like, again, if anyone wants one of those, like you can reach out, message me on Facebook. It's the best way to get a hold of me. We assess people for free and really help them figure out like where calories should be, if they're having enough carbs or not. We take a full inventory of your stress, your sleep, your digestion, your energy, your past dieting history. If you have any chronic conditions, like those are all questions that you will get asked because all of those things are going to contribute to our ability to give you advice. Because like if all you're like, I get messages all the time, it's like, hey, I'm this tall, I'm this old, how much should I be eating? I'm like, that literally tells me nothing. Like I don't know any more about you before you sent this message than I do now. So it's like we have to take a full inventory. And again, pay attention, like try tracking, give yourself some grace. You're just collecting data. Don't give yourself a hard time for what you're eating. Just write it down and be like, okay, I feel like this after. I feel like that. I had an energy crash. I had bloating, whatever it is. It's just information. The more information you have when you reach out to us, like the more we can help you, like the more specific our advice can be for you, which is best case scenario. That being said, thank you so much, Emma, for being on. It was super fun. I'm having so much fun having all the coaches on. So this is just such a good time.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, need help, please comment, send me a message. All the information is in the show notes for you there. And if you found this helpful or you have a friend that's struggling with gut health, please send this over to them. It'll be super helpful. And we just want to be able to help as many women as we can. With that, have a great rest of your days. Great day, guys. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.